So in this tutorial, we are going to continue from where we stopped. We are going to now go on to implement the controller endpoint, the services, and the repositories for users, roles, and user roles assignment. So basically, these four objects we are going to create and make sure that we have all the controller endpoints. This tutorial continues from the previous tutorial where we actually developed the models for handling user roles and permissions. And let's now create the other services, that is the services, controllers, and the repositories. If you are joining for the first time, please review the previous video and also find all its tutorials in my website. The page is open right here. You can have access to this page for free. Keep in mind, we are trying to achieve a standard roles and permission management, as you can see right here. We are going to now implement 7 different endpoints. Take note, we are going to implement 7 different endpoints. The first one is to save privileges. So how does it work? So if you go to the save privileges, once you make all the selections, you click on save, it takes a list of privileges and then saves it into the database for that particular user. The second one is the get user privileges. Given a user, get all the privileges for that user. The third one is get users in privilege. Given a privilege, get all the users that have this privilege or this privilege is assigned to. Clear assigned privileges. This is going to be given a user and we want to clear all the privileges assigned to that user. This might be necessary in a situation where a user leaves the company, or maybe a user is away and he doesn't need access to the application. We also have unassigned role. So you want to let's start with the first one, assign a role. Assign a role takes all the privileges in a role and assigns it to a user, right? Unassign a role takes all the roles all the privileges in a role and makes sure that the given user doesn't have any of them. It unassigns all these particular privileges. Get privileges in role takes a role and gives back all the privileges. We are going to come to this. So first, let's go ahead to create our repositories, our services, and the controllers. Now, I think for the role and for user, we already have the controller. So let me see. For role and for user, we already have the controller. So I'm going to just kind of drag things into where they belong. Yes, repository should go into repositories. Okay, so let's go ahead to start with creating the privilege controller. I will also go to create the privilege repository and the privilege service. Privilege repository is an interface and it extends JPA repository. And it's going to be privilege, and the primary key field is long, is of type long. And we also need the other repository, that is user privilege assignment repository. So for the first thing, we need to have the basic controller methods and the service methods. So what I normally do is to copy from an existing one. So let's say we go to roles service, for instance, we can simply copy there and then move it into the privilege service, and then we can just refactor the names. So do this for role, for privilege, and also for user privilege assignment. I'm going to do it right now and then continue. Okay, so now I've succeeded in creating all the necessary controller methods, the basic controller methods, get, post, put, and delete. And we are going to run the application and see if it updates the Swagger documentation. And then we go on to work on the key controller methods, which is actually this one that has to do with assigning and unassigning roles and handling permissions. So let's run the application to make sure that our setup is okay, and then we move on to the next part. So I'm going to restart this application. So restart. Okay, so I think everything is okay for now for the basic controller method, just like every other controller method. I'm going to the Swagger documentation and I'm going to refresh. Let me just make sure I have this new controllers like the privilege controller and user privilege assignment controller. So I'm going to search for privilege. So we have the privilege controllers you can see right here. We can actually do get on privileges and we don't have anything. We don't have anything. And also we can check for the assignment. Give me 1 second. So user privilege assignment controller, as you can see right here. So we don't have anything as well. But one thing I could try to do is to insert a privilege. So let me insert a privilege. And by the way, I can also go to the UI to just check. So if I go to port 8080 API v1 slash what? API slash v1 slash privileges, and we don't have anything. So let's use our Swagger UI Swagger UI to insert a new privilege. So let me go to the privilege controller. 1 second. User privilege assignment controller. No, I'm looking for the privilege controller. So here. So let's do a post. Let's do a post. And the post methods. Let's see. I simply want to insert only description and ID. So let's try it out. And I'm going to only insert description and ID. Let me see. Required command A, delete. So close. Okay, I'm going to try to insert just one privilege, and I don't need to insert the ID, and let's execute. And I think it worked. So you can see a response body 200 created, create product, and if I go back here and refresh, you see that we have the privilege inserted right here. So I think our basic controller methods, they are actually okay. So you can actually do a bit of testing, insert a few things and see what you get from there. In the next part, we are now going to create the core controller methods, which is actually listed in my website here, which is actually these ones. So how do you pass in a list of privileges and assign it to a specific user? So let's do that in the next part. I'd like to thank you for viewing. Remember, subscribe to my channel if you've not subscribed, and we'll see you in the next part.